I'm going to teach you some skills for dream interpretation today. But really what you're doing with dreams is you're working with them, you're engaging with them, and you're drawing out the information that's embedded in them. So I've authored 3 books about dreams. 2 of them are professionally published. One is a bestseller. It's called The Dream Interpretation Dictionary. And dreaming is a way that your mind communicates with you. And a lot of people don't really understand what the language is. So what I wanted to do today with you is to teach you how I work with the language of dreams so that I can translate the language of it. Dreams can appear to be very surreal and disconnected from daily life and ordinary reality. And it's similar to listening to someone who is speaking a foreign language. If you've ever been in a room full of people who are speaking a language that you don't understand, you kind of sit there and feel kind of dumb because you don't understand what they're saying. But once you can understand the lingo of dreams, you are able to translate the language. And you start to feel, as you become more comfortable, it's kind of like when you learn a second language, that you become more comfortable speaking it and listening to it, translating it. So I'm going to do both today in my presentation. I'm going to teach you how to listen to the language of dreams, and then we're going to do some practice exercises where we're going to kind of create our the way that a language would be constructed, but we're going to replicate the way that dreams do it, and it's going to be a way for us to all understand our dreams better. So I would like to see a raise of hands for anyone who remembers their dreams from last night. Raven, Tarina, yes. I don't see Sue raising her hand. That's okay. Most people don't remember their dreams on any given night. Barbara, you just disappeared from my screen. Okay, I like to start off with this because, of course, you need to remember your dreams in order to have anything to translate from them. And this is a skill. It's something that you can practice. If you give it your time and attention, this is the best way for you to start remembering your dreams or to remember them better. The time is when you first wake up in the morning. These are when the dream memories are fresh. Dream memories are encoded in short-term memory. So it's a type of memory, a special type of short-term memory that is easily overwritten. So that means if you get up and you start thinking about something else or doing something else other than focusing on your dream memories, then you're overwriting those memories. They're still deep down inside you, but you're now preoccupied with other thoughts, and gradually the dream memories become harder to access. So give it your time and attention the first thing when you wake up in the morning if you want to be able to remember your dreams. The other thing is to have the desire. I'd like to see another show of hands of how many people know that dreams are meaningful and therefore worth your time to remember. Thank you. I'm seeing a lot of hands. This is something that a lot of people don't know. If you survey the general public, you'll get a lot of people who go, well, why should I bother spending time, trying to remember my dreams? They're not meaningful. So, what's the point? And unfortunately, this is a common perception that was, a lot of it was perpetuated by a theory called activation synthesis. There was a Harvard professor, Alan Hobson, with a co-author of a very famous study that came out in the 1980s. And he had this theory that dreams are activity that starts in the brainstem as we sleep. And because the mind has this proclivity for looking for connections and things and looking for meaning, any meaning that you have in dreams is basically you imposing something on what is essentially random imagery, dream imagery. Call them brain farts. This has actually been used in the academic literature, that dreams are brain farts. There's no point in, bothering with them because there's nothing there for you to there's no intrinsic or inherent meaning to dreams. They're just something that we ascribe to what is essentially a meaningless process of the brainstem spitting out memories and imagery as just a natural function of sleep. Well, this theory, even though it has been very thoroughly disputed and shown to be untrue, has penetrated into the popular culture. So there's a lot of people who think that dreams aren't meaningful and therefore they're not worth your time to bother to try to remember them. I think that, and I've seen this bias in the academic communities where people who don't understand their dreams, and they're also scientists and researchers who are influential in shaping other people's opinions and ideas about dreams, they say, well, my dreams aren't meaningful, therefore dreams in general can't be meaningful. The one other quick note on this before we get into the presentation, there are some dreams that are not meaningful. They tend to occur during what's called the NREM or non-REM stage of sleep. And you go through these stages of sleep as you go through the night, and it's called the sleep cycle. And there is one stage when you have very vivid and intense dreams, and you've probably heard of it. Anybody heard of REM sleep? REM stage sleep? Yay, okay. This is a term that most of us, at least by now, have heard. And what it means is that your eyes are moving rapidly. What it means is there's a lot of brain activity. And this is a really fascinating thing about REM sleep. Your body is asleep, but your brain is very much awake. So what happens as you sleep is that you kind of go like a pendulum from here you are falling asleep, and you go into the other end of the spectrum where you're in this very deep sleep. It's called delta sleep. And it's because there are these very slow meandering brain waves going on. They're called delta waves. And this is when your body is getting what it needs. You have I'll give you an example. 95% of the growth hormone that your body produces during a given day is produced during the delta stage of sleep. So your body is getting what it needs. And then the pendulum swings back the other direction, and your brain wakes up and enters into REM stage sleep, but your body stays asleep. So now you're having an experience of dreaming as if you are awake. And this is when dreams are the most vivid and also the most emotional. Okay, now having said that, I'm going to share my screen and get into my PowerPoint presentation here. Don't worry, I'm only going to go through some of this. I'm not going to just be hitting you with a long lecture. What I want to do first is teach you the language of dreams, and then we're going to get into examples. Let's start with this fact. I hope that I have two hands up when I say, has anybody heard of Dr. Carl Jung? I hope especially in this community that he's known, because Dr. Carl Jung had many fabulous things to say about dreams. He was a Swiss psychiatrist, a student of Sigmund Freud, or kind of a protege of his. And then he split with Sigmund Freud because he believed that there was more to the unconscious mind and more to dreams than what Freud's original theories popularized. So Carl Jung said that if you want to interpret dreams, first learn everything you can about dream symbolism. And the reason why is that dream symbolism is the language of the unconscious mind, and the unconscious mind creates dreams. So this part of your mind, the unconscious, is creating your dreams, and it uses the language of symbolism to communicate. Now, here's a fascinating fact about the unconscious mind. It comprises, depending on the neuroscientist or the researcher that you ask this question, it comprises 95 to 99% of the total mind. So the conscious mind, the part that you know from your awake experience of life, your conscious experience of life, is a very small part of it. It's literally the tip of the iceberg. This is the analogy used. A little bit of the iceberg is above the waterline. Most of the iceberg is below the waterline. The waterline is your threshold of awareness, what you're aware of about yourself. A lot of the unconscious mind is automatic processes that run. Your heart beats, you breathe. These are processes that happen and you don't have to think about them. but there's also content about you and your mind and your psyche that is unconscious. And this is where dreams come in very strongly in relationship to that part of your mind, the unconscious mind, because Dr. Jung says that dreams are pulling up content from the unconscious that is trying to become conscious. So what you're seeing in your dreams are parts of yourself, of your psyche, that are emerging, one, and two, that you're not really consciously aware of. So there's a lot that you can learn about those parts of yourself that are below the waterline by paying attention to your dreams. Now, I mentioned earlier that dreams can appear to be very surreal and disconnected from ordinary reality, but it's not gibberish. It's a language, and the language to most people is foreign. So that's why Dr. Jung says, if you want to interpret dreams, first learn everything you can about dream symbolism, and then learn how to translate it. All right, next slide. Our understanding, our learning of dream language begins with what is a dream symbol? A dream symbol, thought of simply, is a shorthand way of expressing an idea. A symbol is like a shorthand language. It's visually showing you something, but there's an idea that's behind it, and it's packed with information. Dream symbols have a two-sided dynamic. They show the situational dynamics, and on the other side, they show the personal dynamics. So the situation could be a family situation, a work situation, a life situation. On the other side of it, you have the personal dynamics, your emotions related to it, your feelings, and feelings and emotions are actually two different things, and other personal dynamics. They are embedded as information in the dream symbol. So there's a lot there. You see just the symbol in your dream, and it's packed full of information. A lot of it is information that you can sense or intuit or just feel. And then there's more to it as dreams take symbols and put them into context. And I'll get more into that in following slides here. But I want to give you an analogy to help you understand a dream symbol. Think of a hieroglyph, such as an Egyptian hieroglyph. When Western researchers first started going through Egypt and discovering their temples and pyramids and stuff, and they discovered the hieroglyphic writing, they said, ooh, pretty pictures. What do they mean? And they didn't really understand it, because the hieroglyphs are a picture language, a symbol language, and each symbol is packed with information. There are ideas out there that the hieroglyphs are like letters or words, but really you got to think of the hieroglyph as more than just a word. It's embedded with ideas. There can be entire sentences or paragraphs or chapters worth of information that is packed into the hieroglyph. So I want to give you that idea that the dream symbol is like a hieroglyph, and the hieroglyph is packed full of information. It is much more than just a word or a name. All right, next slide. Symbols visually represent things that are intangible. Picture yourself as the dreaming mind. It has a job to do when you go to sleep. It's reviewing the experiences of your day. Now, these can be events and situations and circumstances, but also your inner life reactions to the things that happen externally in your life, or things that happen just internally inside of you, such as your thoughts and feelings. Now, a thought is something that's intangible, but a dream needs to present it to you as a visual representation. So it creates a dream symbol that has the information and ideas that are packed into it. So it must show these intangible things, these non-physical, non-material things. It must show them physically or materially, or at least allude to them. And I'll give an example here. Emotions are intangible. They're things that you experience inside of yourself. They can be sort of tangible in the sense that you feel them inside of your body, but there's still an intangibility to it. Now, if you need to visually represent what an emotion is, what it is that you've experienced as an emotion, how do you do it? This is the job of the dreaming mind, is to translate from intangible and non-material over to material and visually represented. So there are some common ways that dreams represent emotions. The most popular way is through color. We have a lot of figures of speech that express emotions through color. You know, if you say, I'm as happy as sunshine, right? Sunshine has a yellow color to it, and now you've associated it with sunshine, yellow with sunshine, with happiness, with the emotion. If you say that I'm feeling blue today, you're expressing an emotion through a color. If you say that, you know, I'm feeling red hot, you know, that sometimes that it's like an emotion like anger. Red hot could mean passionate. So we use colors in our as representations of emotions in our language, and dreams pick up on that too, and they'll take it and visualize it for you. So another way is elements, and when I say elements, I mean like earth, air, fire, you know, water. Water is a very common way for dreams to express emotions as symbols. You think of the water in the state that it's in. If water is frozen, any ideas about what emotional state that could represent? Yeah, when you say that your emotions are frozen, okay, that's the state that you're in emotionally. How does the dream represent it visually? Well, frozen water can be one way, or boiling water, calm water. Immersed in water is another way that a dream can create a scenario that shows that you are immersed into your emotions, into the internal experience of your emotions. So that's what the dream is wanting to convey visually, the idea that you're immersed in your emotions. Now it shows you immersed in water. So then the dream can pick up on that and say, for example, your ability to be able to travel through the water can show your ability to be able to navigate your own emotions. Breathing underwater is a common way that dreams can show that you have a comfort level in dealing with your own emotions. Another way is through scenarios. When we think of symbols, we tend to think of something that's static. It's not moving, it's just sort of a picture, a snapshot. But you really need to think of it more in terms of video. Video shows more context. And so what dreams do is they create scenarios like videos that can convey, for example, emotions. So dancing, any ideas here? Expressions of emotion through dancing? You know, exuberance, for example, could be an emotion that a dream expresses through the scenario or action of showing dancing. And also fighting. That's just another example, kind of going to the other end. Dreams show you or a scene that involves fighting, and it can show, for example, that you're experiencing turbulent emotions, or that you're fighting with yourself over something, and it's creating, you know, there are emotions that are related to it. All right, next slide. I use this example to show a comparison between the way that we create language, the basics of creating our language. It starts with nouns and verbs, adjectives and adverbs. And dreams are doing the same thing. They're communicating using things that are what we might call nouns. Well, a noun is a person, place, or thing or idea. Well, in dreams, the nouns can be the settings, the characters, and certain types of symbols. Nouns are usually paired together with verbs. In the English language, at least, this is, you start with the noun, you add a verb to it. Well, in dream language, you have actions that are, verbs are actions. So dreams show things happening. Those are actions, they're verbs. And then there's also your reactions to things that happen in dreams. And here we get into some really interesting learning material, because the way that you react to things that happen in your dreams, it's think of it as like a choose your own adventure. If anyone remembers those books, the choose your own adventure books, the story begins by giving you the outline and it proceeds forward. And then there comes a point where you make a decision about how the rest of the story unfolds. You take the fork in the road that goes one way, you take the fork in the road, it goes another way. The story unfolds differently depending on the choices that you make. This also happens in dreams. You are co-creating the dream along with the unconscious mind. It's an interactive process. It's participatory. So you are not just a passive observer in your dreams, you're actually co-creating them. So your reactions can tell you a lot about what is happening underneath the surface in the dream. Now, when you react to something in a dream, it's often based on subconscious knowledge of what the thing that you're reacting to means symbolically. Now, remember this, you already know what your dreams mean. Do you know why that is a true statement? It's because you create your dreams. Now, it might seem sometimes like the mothership out there in orbit is beaming them into your head because the dreams appear disconnected from ordinary reality. But you are actually creating your dreams deep down in your own mind. So it means that subconsciously, you must know what they mean. So you pay attention to your reactions. I consider them to be a verb of dream language. Now we have things that modify nouns, and in language we call them adjectives. And you can have example of color, size, and condition. You take the setting and there's a color. The house is painted orange. The dream is choosing that detail for a reason. And there's something that it's expressing through that idea. So the adjective has modified the noun and it's creating a deeper idea. There can also be the size and condition of things that are adjectives of dream language. And then we have what you might call adverbs. And the adverbs are things that affect the actions. So you have verbs, actions, and then you have adverbs such as the movement of something, the pace that things are going, and the direction. Don't worry, I've got more slides and we're going to get into demonstrations of this in just a minute here. So let's move on to the next slide. How do we create complex communication with symbols? Dreams can start with simple ideas, but then they start stringing together these nouns and verbs and adjectives and adverbs. They're putting them into context, the overall story, and the way that these symbols connect together. The same way that we string together words into a sentence, sentences string together to form paragraphs, paragraphs form chapters, chapters form a book. This is the same sort of thing. As you string together these symbols, they get more and more complex in their communication and the amount of information that they can convey. So you take a noun, put it together with a verb, add modifiers, and you've created a complex idea. Then put more nouns, more verbs, and more modifiers together as the scene progresses, or the dream progresses from scene to scene, and you can have some really complex ideas that are communicated. So that covers that slide. Let's get to the next one. All right. Now, I said that we were going to get into some demonstrations, ways that we can actually create dream sentences. And I want to start off with some fairly simple ideas here. So the first is that you have, let's take 2 examples of common nouns from dreams. We'll take a house and we'll take a vehicle. And then we have verbs that don't go together with those nouns. And I chose construction and exploration to go together with house, and driving and parking to go together with vehicle. So now we start stringing it together like a sentence. We begin with the noun, the house. Very common dream symbol. And one of the reasons why is because there is a great metaphorical relationship between the idea of a house and the life that you create for yourself and the life that you live in. Now, your house could be like your mind or your body, because it is the place that you live within. The dream, remember, needs to convey this idea visually. The dream wants to speak to the life that you've created for yourself and its current conditions. So now you have the house being shown to you and you are living within it. And that's a way of expressing what's going on in your life and the life you've built for yourself. So when you see construction in a dream, for example, it's the construction on a house, and other types of buildings can also represent you and your life. But the idea is that construction is something that you're building up parts of yourself. Now, imagine somebody who is a bodybuilder and they're building up their body. A dream wants to represent that visually. All right, hard muscles, strong muscles equals strong construction. Lots of steel and rebar and concrete, things that are sturdy and are going to hold up. That's one way that a dream can show the idea of having a strong body. Exploration of a house. I can't see everyone right now, but I'd like to do another show of hands of how many people have dreamed about exploring a house and finding new rooms within it. Yeah. Very, very common dream scenario. And think about the metaphorical possibilities for this. If your house is you, now the dream is showing you as a house and you're getting to know yourself better. Now you're discovering new rooms within your house. Dr. Carl Jung had a famous dream that he used as an example to show how he came to the understanding of what the collective unconscious is. I've just introduced a new idea and I better explain it real quick. The collective unconscious is the part of the unconscious mind that connects us all together. It's a shared database of sorts between us. So you have a personal unconscious and you have a collective unconscious. Personal unconscious, personal to you. And remember, unconscious mind is where your dreams are being created. Collective unconscious is the shared ancestral part of our own minds. And so Dr. Jung had a dream where he found like this sub-basement down in a house. And he went down, and as he got deeper and deeper into the layers, like going downward, he found it was almost like an archaeological site. The things around him kept getting older and older until the point where they were archaic, like not necessarily like dinosaur bones, but just to get the idea across, ancient relics deep down underneath this house. And what it was showing him visually was that his own explorations of his mind had led him down into this deep sub-basement within ourselves. And the very foundation of what we are created out of, the way that the psyche and the mind are created, comes from these deep foundational layers that are based on our ancestry and our heritage as human beings. Dr. Jung said that the collective unconscious contains the experience of all human beings going back to the origins of our species. This is a part of every one of us. So when you dream going deep down into that basement, and he went into the sub part of the basement, you're talking below subconscious. A basement can show something that's subconscious. Well, what is a sub basement? Now you're getting into a deeper idea that's expressed through that. So another one I want to mention with exploration, I have found this to be a very common theme in the dreams of younger people. Let's just say college age and below, although I don't want to put too much of a cutoff on this, is they will dream about exploring a mansion. Might be something that you've dreamed too. I remember having a lot of those dreams when I was younger. And think of, a mansion, a house is you and your life, and there's this mansion, and you're going through exploring it. And the dreams often have the idea that you're going from room to room and discovering new things, new rooms, new parts of the mansion. And it shows that when you're younger, and this is one reason why younger people tend to have the mansion dream, is because there's so much of their life that's ahead of them and things that they don't know about themselves, but they sense that it's there as potential. And as they discover these parts of themselves, they go into these rooms and they turn on the lights. And what that's showing is that visually representing the idea that they're discovering new parts of themselves. Okay, let's talk about vehicle. Okay. So what a very common scenario I find in dreams is that they begin with the noun that is a vehicle, and then they add the verb onto it, which is an action related to the vehicle. And it can be a very common action is driving. Now, if I ask for another show of hands, how many people have dreamed about driving in their vehicle, driving a car? It's probably all hands are going to raise, because it's such a great metaphor to show to show the way that your life is proceeding and the amount of control you have over the direction of it. So you're driving along in the car, and that's a way of showing the progress in your life or the movement of life. We often use descriptive words in terms of movement to describe what's going on in our lives. If you say, I'm going places in my life, the dream takes that idea and shows it visually. You're in your car and you're going somewhere. Now, what if you're not going somewhere in your life? What if you're stuck? What if you're spinning your wheels? What if you're driving in circles? Now we have these ideas that are expressed through those actions, those verbs, beginning with the noun, the car or the vehicle, and then the way that it's being driven and where it's going. What would it mean if you are driving a car from the back seat? I'll give you a second to think about that one. I've run across this many times. And I just want to mention real quick, I'm a moderator at Reddit Dreams, and I've been doing this for 10 years now. And what it means is that I've run across thousands and thousands of dreams that people have shared. And I interact a lot with people and help them to understand their dreams. And not just at Reddit, but other social media and in person and with friends and with my own dreams. So I've seen these scenarios play out hundreds of times. Someone says, the dream starts and I'm in my car, and then this action happens. So driving in circles, right? Going round and round and not getting anywhere. Driving in circles could be like the idea of arguing in circles. Or when you say you're going in circles, you're putting forth effort. There's energy being expended. There's movement, but it's not getting you anywhere in the end. A dream where you are driving too fast, often accompanied by trying to press on the brakes and being unable to slow down. This is another very common dream scenario that I've seen. And it's because I think that most of us have experienced at some point in our lives where we feel like things are going by too quickly, or that it's out of control in a way that you can't slow a situation down. The pace at work is insane. It's coming at you so fast they got some project we're doing at work. Okay, the pace of it is going so fast and it feels like you can't slow it down. So the dream needs to take that idea and represent it visually. So what it does is it shows you, screaming along in the car, and you press on the brakes and they don't work. Let me give you a quick example of this. I have in a dream. I have a friend of mine who is he's a construction project manager. You want to talk about a fast-paced job? He builds like power plants and massive structures, schools, hospitals, stuff. And he's the guy who manages the project. And he told me that he had this dream where he was going down the highway, screaming along, just like the car is going 100 miles an hour, screaming down the highway. And now he's in a turn, and the turn is sharp, and he's having to really focus and concentrate on the road. He's gripping the steering wheel. He's trying to maintain that turn. Next, he has a truck full of contractors, people who were actual contractors on the job that he was managing at the time, who pull up next to him in a truck, and one of them reaches into his window and tries to take control of the steering wheel. He fights the guy off and manages to do that while barely staying on the road. He said it was really precarious though. Like, he had this sense that that if he didn't get keep control of the steering wheel, that one slip meant that the car was just going to go screaming 100 miles an hour off the highway. So we talked about his dream, and most dreams connect with what's going on in our waking lives. And so we explored, well, what's going on in your life? We looked at what's going on at work, because the contractors are people that he said, yeah, it's a truck full of guys who are, they're some of the contractors that I manage at work. And I said, okay, well, this is probably about work. Let's explore what's been going on there. And we were looking for ways that action in his car, and he's driving along very fast to begin with. I said, well, what could that show? How is that visually representing what's going on right now at work, if anything? Just asking questions. And he says, well, I've got this project I've been doing, and man, the pace of this thing, it is just screaming ahead. And I said, okay, well, that kind of is shown in the dream as screaming along in your car down the highway. And I said, what's going on with the project? Like, what's the state of it? He said, well, it's barely under control right now. In fact, I feel like I'm losing control of the project. Okay, now we can see how that is expressed in the dream as him barely in control of, of the car, the vehicle. And then I said, well, what's going on with these contractors? Well, and he said, these guys in particular have been trying to move in and tell me how they should do their jobs. See it in the dream? The guy who's one of the contractors reaches through his window to take control of his steering wheel, and he is the construction project manager, and they are trying to tell him how they should do their jobs. So after going over this dream with them, he said that the next morning, when he showed up at the construction site, that he was ready to tell these guys, he was going to crack down hard on these contractors. He said it's the kind of business where if you give someone an inch, they'll take a mile. And that he realized that he was not really asserting his control and authority as the project manager. So now we see how the dream takes the idea, begins with the noun, the vehicle, adds on the action, which is driving of the car and the conditions. Now it adds on other things like, it's not just him and his car. Now he's fighting for control of his steering wheel with another party that's come into the scene. And you see how it all relates together to convey what's a pretty complex idea in the end. It's not just the situation that he's in, but also how he feels about it and how he perceives what's going on. He's barely in control as he's driving the car. And he senses also that that's what's going on with the project. Now, let's take the vehicle and say that it's parked. What is the idea of a car? We usually associate actions with, you put together the noun with the verb, which is, in this case, the vehicle with the action of it. And you think of it in terms of things that are going somewhere. But the car is parked. It's not moving. So if that's the case, the car is parked, then what does it mean? What could it mean? So this is what we want to explore ideas about the ways that dreams we're going to create dream sentences. Let me give you an example. There was a guy that came to Reddit who said that he had a dream that he parked his car at the company that he worked for in the parking garage, and that the parking structure, ended up collapsing on top of his car. Think about that one for a second. You, of course, would need to know the guy's context to understand it. Here's the context. He said that the company went belly up. The structure, right? This is a parking structure. He's parked his car here. He's gotten a job with this company, and he's in the sense he's parked his car there. The car is what's moving him in his life. The dream is speaking to his professional life. So if he's parked his car in the structure, what it means is that he's picked a place for him to play out this part of his professional life. But the structure collapses, and the company structure collapsed because they went out of business. They went belly up. So it's collapsed down onto his car. Here's another one. The car is parked in a garage. There's an idea there, right? So if the car is parked, it means it's not going anywhere. Now, what could that convey as an idea? It's a visual representation of an idea. It's a dream symbol, but it's being put into context. You have the vehicle put into the context of it being parked in a garage. Well, it's not going anywhere. It's unused potential. That's one possibility. There might be other possibilities that you can think of. The lack of activity can speak volumes in itself. And you will often react to it as you see this kind of imagery in a dream. You might think, well, the car is parked there. Somebody should get behind the wheel and drive it somewhere. Maybe that's something you think in the dream, or you start looking for a reason why the car is just parked there and not going anywhere. Let's say that the car is out of gas. What could that mean? Well, think about your energy level. Think about your motivation, your drive. Drive is your motivation to achieve your ambitions. One way of thinking of it, at least. So you drive a car. So you see these parallels between dream language and situations in life, and the way that dreams construct and communicate the idea, or they communicate the ideas and construct the story around it by stringing together the noun with the verb and then the modifiers. And you see that when you string this stuff together, the potential for meaning starts growing and growing. That when you string together symbols and then put them into context, you can now start expanding and expanding, and how much information is packed into that imagery. So I'm going to move on to the next slide. Take a little drink of water here. Sorry, I saw someone that looked like they were waving at me, but they're in their car, Karina, and she is gesticulating. Okay. Now, let's take, I gave you the example of the mansion earlier as an adjective, forgetting that I already had it on a slide here. But let's talk about it a little bit more. The mansion is a very expansive home. And the home, if it expresses the idea of your life that you've constructed for yourself, or the home that you make for yourself inside of your own mind, inside of your body, now you have the idea of a mansion here, and it's, there's an idea that's behind it, at least. It's something that is big, it's grand. It could show big ambitions. It's not these are common examples of these symbols, but it doesn't mean that if you dream about a mansion that it automatically means that there's this, that it's something like big potential for your life. It could also show things like grand ambitions, It could show your things like your idea of your relationship, your internal mental relationship with the ideas of wealth, luxury, extravagance. These are all ideas that could be expressed as a mansion. Here's one also. The house is ramshackle. You look inside or even outside, that's, doors are falling off, windows are cracked. You look inside and, there's dirt everywhere, paint's peeling off the walls. And what that can show is what's the condition inside of you or the dreamer. Because here's another idea that's expressed through a house, whether it's inside or outside. Inside the house, inside of you. Outside the house, external circumstances. The front door, your boundary between internal life inside the house and external life outside the house. So, example from a dream. A woman had a dream that she knew that there was somebody coming to her door and she didn't want to let the person in. She runs to the door, and just as she gets there, she realizes the person on the other side has gotten to the door, and now she's trying to lock the door before the person can come in. We explored the circumstances of what was going on in her life with the idea that the door was the boundary that would admit people into her life or keep them out. We use this kind of language when we want to say, I want to keep that person out of my life. Well, how can a dream take that and express it visually? Well, by showing action at the door, because you are the one who might be able to control the action that's happening with the door. If you can't keep someone out of your life, it can be shown as the inability to keep the door closed, to keep it locked, things like that. But if you can keep your privacy or keep someone out of your life, it shows you with the ability to lock the door. What she told me is that she had an estranged relationship with her father, and that he had recently come back into her life. Here she is, full-grown adult, mom, kids, and her father, who had been in and out of her life, had recently contacted her again and said, I would like to be part of your life again. She thought about it and said, all the times in the past where I've done this, because he's my dad and I want to give him the opportunity, she said that every time in the past, she'd ended up regretting letting him back into her life. So what you see happening in the dream is that she's trying to get to the door to lock it so that this stranger on the other side of the door can't come in. Well, why would the dream show her father as a stranger? Because he hadn't really been much a part of her life, and he felt like a stranger to her in the sense that she didn't really know him. Another dream where someone showed a ramshackle house and how it fit the context of the person's life. There was a woman who had a dream that she went to her best friend's house, and she knocks on the door, and her friend answers the door and then starts kind of like trying to block her view into the rest of the, being able to see into the house. And the woman who had the dream said that she kind of like looks over her friend's shoulders and she can see like it's in terrible condition and there's rats running around in the house and stuff like that. Turns out that her friend was in a pretty bad emotional state. The friend had been hiding it, and someone says they're in a bad place, but they try to hide it. Oh yeah, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. People do that sometimes. And so the woman who had the dream, though, had a sense that there was something that her friend was trying to hide from her. So now the dream takes that idea and represents it visually as the friend blocking her view from being able to see further into the house. And then the second part of it is expressed in the condition, the ramshackle condition of the home. Rats running around, furniture overturned. That was the dreamer's perception of the internal state of her friend. And it turned out to be accurate. But I will say, though, that this kind of imagery is usually subjective. In other words, it's how you, as the dreamer, perceive things. It's not necessarily an objective truth, it's your perception of it. Okay, so I gave an example earlier of the car driving along at high speed. That's an adverb of dream language because the speed of the car is a modifier of the verb of traveling or driving. And then here's another one. The car is a hot red sports car. Now that's a little, hot and red is more of an adjective, but there's also an implied idea there that this car, a hot red sports car, is something that can go really fast. So there's the potential for action there in the sense that it's information that's packed into that image. You know, like maybe you want to go jump into that hot red sports car and take off in it. That's your reaction to seeing the car. This thing can really run. It's a Ferrari, you know. So you want to get behind the wheel of that car and go. Well, here's an example from a dream that puts it into a larger context. There was a woman who had a dream that she was climbing a mountain. Now start thinking about this, climbing the mountain, metaphors, figures of speech. So she climbs up this mountain, she gets to the top, and there's a hot red sports car that's sitting there. And she thinks, that's my car. I'm getting in that sucker and I'm going. So she gets behind the wheel and there's no keys to start the car. So what is the keys for the car? It's what starts up the, you know, that's what you're able to then take possession of and drive the car. If their car lacks keys, what that shows is the idea of lacking the ability to be able to go to those places that you want to go in your life. And in this case, it was starting a career. You get done with training, education, you go out and look for a job, it's not there. So there's no keys to the car. The car is going to be this thing that's going to take you places, but it can't go anywhere because you don't have the keys. So this is an idea that's embedded in it, in that imagery of putting together the car. It's hot and red. There's a lot of potential there, but it lacks keys. So it's not going anywhere. Okay, let's move on. So let's look at ways that we can find the symbolic meaning in these scenarios where we put together nouns with verbs and modifiers such as adjectives and adverbs, and we'll continue doing these exercises of, you know, this is how dream language works. This is how you construct the language that conveys these ideas and this meaning. So first though, dreams are very personal and only some dream symbols are universal. So most of the symbols that you see in your dreams are being constructed personally for you by your dreaming mind. They're reaching into your memories, your experiences, the way that you see things and view and perceive things, your thoughts and feelings about things. And then it uses that to construct symbols. And this shows as we get older because our dreams tend to start pulling from things that are very personal to us to create our dream stories. You know, friends that we've had. You know, suddenly that friend from, you know, junior high school appears in your dream and you're 50 years old, like, you know, or that place that you lived 20 or 30 years ago. Now it's popping up in your dreams. Well, your dreaming mind is using something about that place that you lived or that person that you knew to create meaning that's very personal to you. Some dream symbols, though, are universal, in meaning that there's a meaning in the symbol that could mean the same thing to everyone everywhere. Carl Jung called them archetypal. And archetypal dream symbols, here's an example, is a dragon. Now, dragons have appeared in cultures around the world and that are disconnected from each other in certain times. So let's say it's, you know, 1,000 years ago, And you take a survey of cultures around the world, and you'll find that almost all of them have a representation of a dragon. Now, there's different ways that they might perceive dragons. Like in the East, dragons tend to be viewed more positively. In the West, you have the story about the knight slaying the dragon and rescuing the maiden from the tower, or, very, kind of combative images involving dragons, and dragons that are very powerful and aggressive. Whereas in the East, it tended to have a bit more nuance to it. Those dragons were also powerful and could be aggressive, but there's more in their mythology and their legends, more of the idea of being able to tame the dragon rather than kill it. And it's what has been shown that is at the heart of this imagery of a dragon is that it expresses an idea that's common to all of us. And our experience of life is that there is something that's very powerful and mysterious in us all. And so the dream takes it and expresses it, or not just dream, but it began in, like, it might have begun in dreams, but it was expressed through the mythology and legends of those cultures. These stories that have carried down to us in modern day, that came from around the world, and cultures that probably didn't have any contact with dragons, right? It's not like a story about a dog, and dogs are basically everywhere. So you could explain why they might have stories about dogs or cats or, I don't know, giraffes or lions or something. But dragons, these are mythological creatures. Why would cultures around the world that had no contact with each other and had no contact with dragons, presumably, that's debatable, but presumably they had no contact with dragons. So why would these symbols be appearing in their mythology, and mythology that's largely probably based on their dreams? It's because dragon is a way of expressing something that is within all of us. It's common to our experience of life. So you might call it universal. So this demonstration is to teach you how to translate the dream language and see what the very personal meaning is that's behind it, very personal to you. This is why you need to learn how to translate the dream language rather than just look up information in a dream dictionary. And as I told you at the beginning of this, I wrote a dream dictionary, and I did it because I wanted to teach people through that format how to translate their dream language, and not just rely on pat definitions that you can see for symbols, because the symbols are usually too personal for me sitting here typing away at my computer, creating a book, a dream dictionary, and be able to guess what that symbol means to you. So what we need to do is learn how to translate our own dream language. All right, here we go. Here's one that I think is a really fascinating way that dreams can create meaning through dream language. And it's beginning with luggage or suitcase, kind of same idea, right? And then, so that's the noun, and then the verbs that we'll use as examples: packing, luggage. So you have the noun, which is the luggage. You have the verb, which is packing it. So think about what it means. Picture it as your own dream for a minute. Maybe some of you have had this dream. It's kind of a common, this is something, luggage is something that we basically all know about. And we've all packed luggage. We've done it for different, under different circumstances. You can be packing luggage because you're moving, because you're going on a trip, because you need to store. I got some luggage in the other room that's packed full of stuff. It's like, well, if it's not being used for a trip, I need some space here. And, I've got all this space inside of my luggage. So I'll start packing some things in there until I need the luggage. And, but if it's just sitting in my closet, I might as well use the space. So packing luggage. Now, think about, the luggage is going to be used to take you somewhere. And if you're packing it, what does it mean? Well, let's try this on as an example. Expectations. Expectations are things that you take with you as you travel through life. So when you're dreaming about packing luggage, it can mean visually the idea of taking your expectations with you as you presumably go somewhere in life, because if you're packing your luggage, you're going somewhere. What about if the luggage is overpacked? Overpacked luggage, too many expectations? What if the luggage is your to-do list? It's a visual representation of a to-do list. Well, because oftentimes it's like when you're going on a trip, you have this list of things to do and like to prepare to go on a trip. And so part of it could be pack the luggage. And it's not just one idea, there's all the things that you have to get together. You know, there's the toiletries, there's the clothes, there's the type of clothes. These are all, you know, oh, I forgot to pack socks. You know, I mean, I took a trip once with only sandals. I forgot to pack shoes. You know, like these are things we got to be organized when we're packing luggage. So now the dream is taking that core idea with the luggage, the noun, and is putting it together with the verb of packing it. And then it's putting an adjective, or maybe even think of it as an adverb, of overpacking the luggage. Okay, too many expectations. Your mind is full. Like the luggage, you're overpacking it. Your mind has too many things to think about, but you're still trying to pack more into it. You get the idea here. Overpacking, there's too much there. There's too much on your to-do list. That was it. The luggage is your to-do list. You're overpacking it. You're putting too many things on your to-do list. Or somebody else is packing your luggage for you. There's an idea there, huh? You're starting to pack. Somebody else is determining your agenda for you. This was one that I just ran across the other night at Reddit. A guy said he had a recurring dream about hurrying to pack luggage. So there's an idea there, right? He's packing his luggage, but he's hurrying to do it. The idea, he said it was a recurring dream, and he's always hurrying to pack the luggage, but doesn't end up going anywhere. Like, what does that mean? What could it mean? We're exploring ideas about how to translate your own dream language. If you have this type of imagery in your dreams, how would you decode it? How would you translate the language? How would you find the personal meaning that's in it? And of course, we're using examples to show how this is done. So in this case, with him hurrying to pack luggage, it was the feeling that he had places to go in his life and he needed to get there. And there was a deeper idea embedded into the dream scenarios is that he was stuck in the same place. He's in his life, he's been in the same place for a long time, and he's feeling like, I need to get out of here. I need to get my life moving. So he's hurrying to pack the luggage. But there could be other ideas that are implied through, hurrying. It could be a general expression of what your life is like. You're always hurrying to get somewhere. You're always hurrying to get things done. That's a variation of the idea that could be put into that dream imagery. And now let's put in another modifier to this. To dreams, I'm giving you rather simplistic examples, but remember that you can keep adding on these dream sentences or adding on details that give you more of, that convey a more complex idea. So the luggage that you are overpacking was given to you by a parent. If the luggage represents expectations, overpacking it represents having too many expectations of yourself, let's say. What does it mean that your parent gave you the luggage? That your parent gave you the expectations, maybe? And so that's why the luggage is overpacked, because they gave you too many expectations. Here's another variation on the theme. You can't find your luggage. So if you can't find the luggage, think of the luggage as a symbol that has an idea embedded in it, that it's going to take you somewhere. It's preparation to go someplace in your life. And that it could be a literal place, moving, taking a trip, something like that. But usually dreams pick up on the more figurative or metaphorical ideas. of going somewhere, such as you have a goal, a destination. There's something that you want to do with your life, something you want to experience. There's the person that you want to be or to become. So if you can't find the luggage, there's an idea that you can't find the means to be able to get to the destination where you want to go, the place that you want to reach, the person that you want to become. Or the luggage is heavy. Is this getting to be kind of obvious now? I hope it is, because I've wanted to walk you through the way that dreams construct ideas and stories and use these nouns, verbs, and then things that modify them, adverbs. And in this case, heavy is an adjective. So if the luggage is heavy, it can convey an idea like, if you talk about you're dragging your baggage from the past along with you, it means that there's all these heavy things that happened in your past that you're bringing with you as you try to go forward in your life. And it's doing what? It's weighing you down. The luggage is heavy, but you still have to carry it with you. Let's presume that it doesn't have the fancy little wheels on it, right? And or the little, I've even seen them now, I think they've got motorized luggage, right? Okay, so let's say that it's the old style luggage. There's no wheels on the thing, you know? You're lugging this, 40-pound thing overstuffed with, probably a bowling ball in there, and you're going along with this luggage and it's really heavy. Well, that's a classic way of expressing the idea of being weighed down by something. And oftentimes when we say that you're dragging your baggage along with you, it means something related to like baggage of life. So this is one of the ways that dreams can start off with something that's fairly simple. It's just luggage. And now it starts adding on these verbs and adverbs and adjectives, and creates more and more complex ideas that have parallels with things that are going on in your life. So let me a little drink of water here. All right. So next exercise, and I chose one that is a very common noun in dreams, is the school. Now, I have been out of college since 1999, so 22 years, almost 22 years. And I've been obviously out of high school for longer than that. But you would be, or maybe you wouldn't be surprised at how many people dream about being back in school even many years after they have left school. And there are all kinds of ways that dreams can start with that setting, that noun, and then start adding on to it to convey ideas. And so let's start off with a very common one, taking a test. Now, I would ask for a show of hands, but I'm only seeing Tarina and I can't even see this anymore. Teresa, Connie, yeah, okay, Angie. Dreams about school, anyone? Anyone? Yeah? Okay, I'm seeing a few hands, thank you. Because it's very common to dream about Christine. Okay, I'm seeing a lot of hands raised, thank you. There's a lot of it's a great way of starting with something, to form a core idea around school and then start packing things onto it to express what's going on in your life right now. So taking the test, you're back in school, you're taking a test. What could it mean? Well, let's begin with ideas that it's right there in the verb. If you are tested, it's not just taking an exam. I was tested today because this is the first time I've actually given a PowerPoint or a Zoom presentation. I've been part of this many times, but as far as being a participant, but this was the first time that I've actually been, I guess they call it, in the spotlight. So I'm having to kind of monitor a lot of things going on here. all at the same time. I'm being tested in a way because it's a novel experience for me, and there's a lot of things to manage as I do this. So anytime that you feel tested in life, that's one of the things that it could, one of the ideas that could be conveyed. But let me give you a variation on the idea. There's a guy that had a dream that he's back in school, even though he's been a professional for years and has been out of school for years. He's back in, like, I think he said it was in college. He knows that there's an important exam that he has to take, and he's racing to find, he doesn't know where he's going. He finally, though, finds the room, gets inside, and finds the desk where he sits down at. And he's like going through his backpack or briefcase or whatever it was, and he's trying to find a pen and a pencil. Okay, I'm going to let Dev into the room. Here we go. Now, here was the really interesting variation on the theme. He said that the test was handed out, and he's handed a blank piece of paper. You would have to know some context for this to understand the dream, but I want you to think about it for a minute. What if that is your dream? You've just raced to find the classroom. You get into there, you know, the exam is handed out, and you get a blank piece of paper. Well, we used a technique of entering into that dream space for him to kind of feel his way through it. This is obviously afterwards. He's awake now, and we're looking at this going, well, what does this mean? There's a blank piece of paper. And this was what we discovered doing a dream reentry and using Gestalt techniques. So basically, he starts talking from the perspective of various parts of the dream. And the first is him. And I say, talk from your own perspective. You're looking at that piece of paper. Tell me what comes to mind. And he says, what am I doing here to begin with? Interesting idea. Okay. You know, usually when you're taking a test in a dream, there's kind of like performance anxiety, or, you know, you're feeling tested in some kind of way. I found this very often in the dreams of people who have been, they're being challenged to learn something new. I mean, they could be 100 years old and they're learning how to do something new. So they're dreaming about it as taking a test, because what a great way of expressing the idea, right? But in this dream, we're seeing something different here, is that he doesn't want to be there in the first place. And now, why is the test blank? I mean, there's no test to take, right? There's no questions being asked of you. There's no performance to give of regurgitating your knowledge or demonstrating your, you know, your education or anything like that. What you have here is a blank piece of paper. And so we had him speak from the perspective of the paper. And he said, I'm blank because it's how I feel. There's nothing there. And basically what the dream was expressing is that he felt like, you know, he was doing all this stuff in his daily life to try to meet the expectations of him as a professional and as an adult, but he wasn't doing the thing that he wanted to do in the first place. He was just kind of going through the motions in a way. There was no real desire or drive or passion behind it. So that's expressed right there. He feels blank, because when you're stuck in a situation like that for week after week, year after year, and you're stuck in the same place in your life, you know, he's kind of stuck in this school in a way. And the school is in a setting that, you know, it's there where he's there to take the test, and that it provides a way for the dream to move this story, because if you take an exam, it's going to be in a school, usually. It doesn't have to be, but, you know, you could just say that the setting goes along with the overall idea. But there could also be a deeper idea, and is that the school, he's learning something about himself. He's in the school, schools are for learning, he's learning about himself. Okay. I hope that this has given you a way that you can approach your dreams to understand that they're a language, that they're stringing together ideas. And I have my dream interpretation dictionary. I'm J.M. DeBord. And it gives you ideas based on the symbols, and it's full of, there's like 750 entries. And if you get the dictionary, it shows you this, but there's also an appendix in there that teaches what I do and how I, how I do this, which I've just given you a taste of here. And dreams123.com is a website that I created with all of this free information. There is a longer lecture on dream symbolism that's there, plus all kinds of things. You can learn about dream characters and a lot of questions that you might have about dreams. It's all there. So I encourage you to look up dreams123.com. And you'll see it's all right there on the front page with the links to different lessons that are there. It's an entire textbook worth of information. So, and dreamschool.net is where I have online classes. I've created lots of online classes that teach you about various subjects related to dreams and their interpretation. And please remember, your dreams are experiences that you give yourself. There's something deeper going on in a dream that's a personal expression of you and your life. So remember that the dream is an experience, and that is where the true meaning is found. Dr. Carl Jung, who said dream symbolism is very important for dream interpretation, the second half of that statement, he said, forget all that when you're interpreting dreams, because what you're really focused on is the experience of the dream, and you don't want to get bogged down in too many details.